Tonight, we dedicate this show to Mistress Nimrel
and to Christopher
and to Soro Lucera.
And a special thank you to our worldwide audience.
To our studio audience, welcome this evening. This is Malthorpe Draco coming to you from Studio 3B, and this is Night Sessions. We have a special show for you tonight, and back with us again is our co-host, Magus Cygnus Atratus, and of course, Magus Aleister Nacht. Aleister, tell us about the focus of our show.
Thanks, Malthorpe. This evening, we're going to talk about finding spiritual gifts given to you by Satanas. Many Satanists limit their thinking about spiritual gifts to the occult arts, and I assure you that Satanas goes much, much deeper into your psyche than that. While scrying, tarot reading, forms of divination, and your magical gifts are important, there are other gifts that we want to bring awareness to in this episode that are equally important and are perhaps unrecognized and underappreciated within the Satanic community. Give the devil his due. He deserves credit for it all. We'll talk about how you can use your unique gifts to honor and bring pleasure to him and his kingdom. May it reign forever. As a reminder, we're approaching the information in this segment as we have approached others. These are our opinions, but rarely does Satanism have a one-size-fits-all. You are the one, along with Satanas, who determines your destiny, and only you can choose what remains satanically relevant for you. Take all or none of what we present here. If you find something of value, use it, make it your own, put the rest away for another day. We will end the discussion with some tips for your journey. So that's what our show is about tonight. We'll try to get all this done in one dark evening, but before we go there, let's go to the one that brought us all together here. Satanas, we come to serve your will and share the gnosis with our listeners. From the depths of hell to the pinnacle of our temple, we call upon the unholy spirit to pour satanic blessings upon us all. So mote it be. Before I ask how my co-hosts are doing tonight, I want to mention a question that came to us from one of our listeners, and it's a good point. The listener wanted to know why we weren't addressing some of the current issues of the day that many of us experience and have us on edge. And we thought that this should be addressed. When the three of us came together to create the show, we made a pact at the time that the only thing this show needs to be about is honoring Satanas and finding the best way to present relevant content that addresses the spiritual needs of our already established Satanic community. It's not that we don't find current affairs of the day unimportant or without merit. They certainly are, but there are plenty of avenues to get the word out through other shows, including some of my own outside of Night Sessions. With Satan, the troubles of the day are like small grains of sand, and they come and go in the world. That said, he does hear his children's call. We are simply wanting to add to the body of spiritual knowledge, and that's what this show is about. Thanks for listening. Magus Atratus, how are you doing tonight?
I'm truly blessed, Magus Aleister and Brother Malthorpe. I'm just giving thanks to Satanas these days. We've had some wonderful gatherings with some wonderful individuals at our open study sessions every other Tuesday night, hosted by Soro Lucera. And that's just been fantastic. The discussions that are coming up, the questions, the people that we're meeting. I'm finding that Satanas is calling us from all over the world to hear his teachings and to and perhaps to respond back to him. And that's so exciting to see and to bear witness to. Hail Satanas.
That is wonderful. Father Draco, how about you? How are you doing?
Yeah, things are great. I'm just continuing to move along in some of the things that we're doing on the side and enjoying spending some time with Satanas recently. And, I'm just looking forward to continuing to see his movement in my life and in the lives of so many people that are affecting us right now through this ministry that you two gentlemen have built.
Wonderful. So, Mal, how about starting us off this evening with our first question?
Thanks, Aleister. Let's spend just a minute on traditional spiritual gifts from the occult that we all know and generally think about. And some people say things like reading tarot, some people say tarot, but tarot cards and scrying. Scrying, of course, is extremely important to me, as is developing my craft. Aleister, before we go too much further into this, though, can you explain to our audience what we mean by the occult or dark arts? And other than scrying and tarot reading, certainly there's the practice of magic or the craft. Are there any others that we may be missing?
Well, there are quite a few of what are considered to be the higher satanic processes. I did a video series called The Satanic Processes, and that series covers gifts used by magnum opus, such as working with sigils, higher order thought, scrying, divination, alchemy, chakras work, satanic sacrifice, the astral nature, psychic medium, readings such as regression, ancestral, and tarot readings, evocation, invocation, and also lust and sex magic. Those are the ones that make up the higher satanic processes. And while not everyone is gifted in each one of those, they are probably gifted with at least one of them.
That's great. That's a great list as well, Aleister. So explain to our novices, what's the best way to figure out what your occult gifts are that Satan may be leading you towards, particularly if you're a new Satanist? How do you figure that out?
Usually the best way is exposure, just exposure to a variety of occult arts and operations. Some people will already know that they have a basic skill, sometimes even without prior knowledge or study. They just have a feeling. It's something that is innate within them. And that often leads a new Satanist into believing that maybe they've lived a prior life in the occult, and or Satan has been with them a long time. A certain type of ancestral knowledge, so to speak. I just did a show with Anima Noara, and we talked about this very thing, how many on the left-hand path feel their past lives, and many of them recognize some of the gifts that have come from those lives, and also recognize other kindred spirits and also other malevolent spirits from the past as well.
Yeah, I think that's very relevant. Hey, Cygnus, how about for you? What are some of the good methods for our novices who are searching out and trying to figure out their occult gifts? What practices or what suggestions would you give our listeners?
A good place to begin for any individual, just a simple question is, what do you enjoy? What do you love? I find that this often doesn't change too much. Where you are more passionate and where you are more inspired, and you're able to tap into a more perhaps creative or deeper place within you, I find that this is the part of you that also yearns to be free in magical expression. And that part of ourself that's untainted, that's unique to each and every one of us, even with, as Aleister mentioned, as you go through the journey and as you learn, as you explore, as you expose yourself to the different variety of skills that you could acquire along the way, you might still always find that you might have a preference for a certain method of expression or of worship in your practice. And so honor that. I think that's a good place to begin, and know that. Also, one of the challenges is there's so much information out there. So how do we know when we're discerning for ourselves what is right, what is wrong? Because I often do get a lot of emails or messages, and the pro to the exposure is that we have access to a lot of different ways of doing things. People on internet sharing their opinions, and at the same time, it might make it more difficult to discern what is more appropriate for me or for each of us in our own path, because there's a lot of information, a lot of options. So at some point, although the information is good, also I would say perhaps committing to a path, one path and one school of thought per se, one method. For example, in the magnum opus, you come in and one of the earlier things you do is a dedication, a self-dedication. And then you later then maybe move into an initiation and enjoy those milestones. It's not simply just to run through a process to say you did it, but it's emblematic of you will find that I believe that Satanas will reveal to you, your guides will reveal to you, your guardian demons, your ancestors, they will reveal, if you're listening, what is the next thing that you need to explore, or to what itch do you need to scratch? Where do you need to go next in your next subject, or the where that you could explore? Because this is endless. This rabbit hole is for the rest of your life, right? But they will lead you. And so if you go through those initiations and take your time, I believe you will be guided. And so honor that and try not to be anyone else. Just be you, who you really are, your most authentic self before the altar of Satanas.
Thanks, Sig. So, I mentioned scrying and I love it. It can almost be like a drug for me. But I also felt like I was being led to learn tarot, and I bought multiple tarot books. I bought multiple decks. I had good practitioners like Venus Satanis give me tips. I studied, I practiced. But, it was kind of like Matt Damon talking to Skylar about a piano in Good Will Hunting. He said, I look at the piano, I see a bunch of keys, 3 pedals, and a box of wood. But Beethoven, Mozart, they could just see it and they could just play. For me, that was like tarot. Like literally, Satan just doesn't have that in store for me as something that I'm supposed to be proficient at. And so, but scrying, it just came to me. I looked at it and it was like, Aleister, you said it earlier. It was like I've done this before. I've traveled through the astral plane. Now, in all honesty, it took a long time to develop the skill. And it took a long time and a lot of practice in looking at a black mirror over and over and over again. But there was some natural talent there, and it just eventually came to me, and I knew that it was a satanically blessed gift. Hey, Sig, back over to you for a follow-up question. Is it possible for a Satanist to just not be led to practice any of the dark arts? For instance, does someone have to practice magic to be a Satanist?
No, in theory, the only element to be a theistic devotee or a Satanist is to acknowledge very simply that there is a higher power, and that this sentient grand intelligence, this force that we make reference to as Satanas, is very much alive and real in our lives, and we believe that wholeheartedly. We've experienced it. We've delved into it. We've sought to test ourselves in our faith. Now, one distinction I would like to note is we don't acknowledge blind faith. We have a well-informed one, because belief is also important in the magical path. So you will have Satanists, and some, not all, are witches or practicing witches or practice magic, although you have Satanists that do. And that's okay. This is a path for each and every one of us Satanas accepts us as we are. We don't have to fit a mold of some dogmatic idea. We just have to meet him before the altar and connect to him in that personal relationship, and he will guide us. But to answer your question, no, you don't have to practice magic. These are one of the avenues that if you feel you'd like to explore, you could, to build on your gifts, because we believe that Satanas will amplify your gifts, whatever they might be. Now, there are savants out there, magical savants out there that might have a series of many gifts, and that's okay. However, there might be some who are extremely good at one. And and that's perfectly okay. You know, it's not about quantity, it's about quality and intention, authenticity, sincerity before the altar of Satanas.
Thanks, Sig. Aleister, as our chief magus, you yourself have had a very productive ministry. You've been a leader within a coven. You've been a developer of young satanic minds out there. You've been an author, a podcaster, a YouTuber, a Patreon content developer, etc. But in all my years of studying with you and studying under you, I've never heard you speak of an occult practice outside of your magic. And of course, magic is a big one. But do you believe you have to have a skill in the occult in order to be a practicing Satanist?
No, not at all. Satanists, after they explore, I believe they'll find that they do have some sort of skill, kind of like Cygnus was saying, but it's not a prerequisite. As I've said before, Satanas would rather a person just show up and try to accomplish a task or try to do something and have it come from the heart than to maybe be more reserved because they're afraid. Maybe their skill is not the same as someone else's. Satanas doesn't care about that. He cares about the effort and the moving forward, the stepping out in faith and going forward to do whatever it is. So no, not at all. We're all individuals and we all have special satanic gifts, and each person is different. You know, I've always wanted to have the psychic ability and I don't have it. Probably never will. But, you know, on the other hand, I do have some gifts. I think it's based on the individual, but there's no prerequisite.
Thanks, Aleister. That was very well said. And so this is almost like the unveiling or the reveal. You know, before we go back to Sig, I just have to ask: do you have? You just mentioned you have some other occult proclivities. What you want to share with our listeners? What some of those might be?
For me, the mechanisms that I most enjoy out of the higher satanic processes are lust and sex magic, chakra working, and satanic sacrifice. And I find that by utilizing those, it allows me to have higher order thought, which is one of the satanic processes. It's a mechanism to get me there, but it's also a mechanism for building energy and also a mechanism for filling desire as well. Those are just the vehicles to get me there. But I would say that those are probably my favorites of the higher satanic magic processes.
Hey, thanks so much for sharing. I know that'll be especially nice for our listeners to hear a little bit more about you. So thanks for that. Hey, Sig, how about for you? Any occult gifts? You know, the Father's blessed you with so many abilities similar to Magus. Just anything that stands out occult gifts wise that you want to share with our listening audience?
Well, first, I just want to express my gratitude to Satanas, because without him, I wouldn't have anything. I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be living. I probably would be in a ditch somewhere. And by his infernal guidance, I'm still living to tell this story so I just want to first give praise to him, because as I've grown closer to him, I've noticed my gifts have grown stronger. But it didn't come because I felt I was entitled to them. I just put myself before the altar. And if anything, one thing that perhaps has always been on the forefront of my mind is to be of service to Satanas. And then that's kind of a concept that's easier said than done. However, and for me though, I would say that's one calling that I believe has made the difference. Because I do sincerely put my brothers and sisters in the coven first. I put you, my brothers, before me, and I'm willing to just give the shirt off my back for another brother or sister in the craft. And so and that's one of the principles I believe of Sathanetics, is that service to each other within the coven, and how many times it's just much more empowered by Satanas, our workings. However, I do specifically enjoy automatic writing, channeling. I love to write, automatic writing. I am blessed and I'm humbled by that. And so, but at the same time, I feel that I have to keep writing, right? There's more coming through, and I'm also very empathic, and which helps me in working with others to sense perhaps what might be the right approach or guidance to convey that honors their power. Again, this is not about dogma. This is about the individual walking their path. However, I hope to serve as a black scrying mirror for other initiates on the path, because that's what I'm here for. I believe that's what Satanas has me here for, to pay that forward. He has blessed me, and I'm extremely happy to be of service to him.
Thanks, Sig. So we're going to move on to our next question. Sig, we're going to send this one to you first. If you have someone who just wants more information about how to practice one of the occult arts, where do you get more information? What do you tell them to do? Where do you send them?
That's a good question, Mal. Well, to begin with, this is such a unique path, right? So definitely the conversation would get a little more unique to the individual, and see what their interests are and their motivations. But generally speaking, starting off with a good, if you're new to the path, it's definitely starting off with a good kind of text that covers a lot of subjects, just like a 101 text. There's a few of them out there. One of the ones I grew up with, one of the first books that I grew up with back when I was 12, 13 years old, was Donald Michael Craig, High Ceremonial Magic. And it was about a 400-page book, but it kind of covered the A to Z's and gave you a good kind of rundown or a brief overview. So getting a book that kind of gives you, like the Black Arts is a book that has a nice overview. It talks about the Black Mass, talks about the history of Satanism, has a couple of other chapters devoted to witchcraft and astrology, herbology. So definitely a nice brief overview would be a good place to start. Cultivating that person relationship with Satanas is very important. And with very simple practices, this could be done. Simply lighting a black candle, sitting before your altar, learning how to prepare your altar, learning how to sit in silence, learning how to invoke, learning how to pray, learning how to speak from your heart in a meaningful way, learning how to sit and await and to receive guidance, to write this down in your grimoire. Magus Aleister, we have a grimoire that's available as well, that kind of gives you a structure as to different things to note down. Dream journaling, these are good places definitely to begin. And of course, if the individual is more along the path and they're familiar with already different subject areas, they can specify now a little bit more like where they want to specialize in. It could be tarot, it could be scrying, it could be trance work, it could be mediumship, clairvoyance. Some folks going more into like the psychic abilities of divination, or even energy medicine with Reiki healing or mediumship and so forth. So kind of identifying where your gifts are, and it will be good to then know where to explore. And you can also acquire new skill sets. And that I find that that comes with curiosity. It's usually those things you're kind of curious about, that where you need to go. Kind of like the old expression, curiosity kills a cat. Well, in our case, it doesn't kill this black cat. It just makes us stronger in him. But first, develop that relationship with Satanas. I think that's very important. And then with your guardian demon, and then with the demonic kings, the patrons, I believe that you will be working with or assigned to, and then there could be more that you could get to know. But simply just kind of diving into a party and not really knowing anybody might be a little early. So just take your time and ask Satanas.
Thanks, Cygnus. Great observation. So, Aleister, back to you for a follow-up with any additional thoughts about the question I posed to Cygnus.
Well, I would say simply ask. If you know someone that is on the left-hand path, that is a theistic Satanist, just ask. I'm sure they, most of the time would be happy to help you, to steer you in the right direction. Just be cognizant and don't become a burden on that person, and take advantage of their willingness to help by asking, 50 questions over and over and over again. That's spoon feeding, and most Satanists are not going to do that for you. You have to take responsibility for your own personal development and move forward. Also, you might invest in a one-on-one phone call with, someone that can help you. There are a lot of those out there, including myself, that offer that as a service where you can just talk and you can share some things that you can't share with family or friends or what have you. But you can also ask for things that will help, tips that will help move you to the next level.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mentioned that I had approached Venus for some tips. Aleister, why don't you share? I'm realizing not everybody may know who I'm talking about. So, Aleister, would you mind just sharing a minute who Venus Sathanas is?
Man, she is a rock star, in my opinion. She is the first real public Satanist on social media that I ever saw on YouTube. Her videos go way back. I forget now when she started. I think she still has more views than the Church of Satan or any other YouTuber too on total count. But her videos are fantastic. She's been doing this for years and years. Really great stuff. Really a legend of the left-hand path. She opened things up. I remember after watching a few of her videos, I thought, well, I could come out of the shadows a little bit. That was the inspiration that she gave me. Just her videos are priceless.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thanks for that, Aleister. So, I reached out to Venus and I asked her for some guidance on tarot. And, she didn't miss a beat. She was busy, as she always was, but she was patient. She wasn't patient because I'd paid her a lot of money. In fact, I hadn't paid her anything. But she shared some basics with me and she gave me the direction I needed so I could go get on the rabbit trail and, figure out what was next. Now, she expected me to go do the frickin' work. She wasn't going to do it for me and help me figure it out. It wasn't about her handing out welfare for me to be lazy. But that's a huge difference, when you go and ask another Satanist for help. Venus always knew where her gifts came from, and she gave of herself, and she never forgot that, and was very open to share her knowledge. And so she's a dear satanic sister.
Absolutely.
And there are others out there too that have imparted this into our lives. So, we can talk about some of the others a little later. But so, Sig, back to you for our next question. Are Satanists with an occult skill obligated to render knowledge to a fellow Satanist? What are your thoughts here?
No, there is no obligation to render any knowledge. That's a luxury, and that is a privilege that is earned through a mutual respect and a healthy communication, a healthy dialogue. The relationship begins with respect. And as Aleister mentioned, self-awareness. You have to be self-aware, again, that we're not imposing or or becoming too needy and spoon feeding, so to speak, and assuring that the exchange is reciprocated. So if this is valuable for you and you value the time and the knowledge that someone is sharing for you in whatever way you can, I make reference to that in my writings, the law of exchange. And the law of exchange is always relevant. So assuring that there is an exchange is very important, the law of exchange. And even if you're broke, there's always some way that you can show gratitude and remaining self-aware that we are respecting the other person's time. And when you come with a question, do your homework to ask a poignant, informed question. That way, you're going there for a purpose. You know what you want. It's succinct. It's straight to the point. There's no waste of time. And with time, you will find that with the relationship as it develops with someone you might respect or so forth within this path, there will be a respect that's earned. And I think that's similar to, in a way, when we even work with the demonic forces. People sometimes ask, well, can you command the demonic as if you order them around and have them on a leash, so to speak? I said, no, you have to earn their respect. And that comes with time, and that comes with developing a personal relationship, similar to myself or anyone else that might want to go to another person and ask them a question. Well, then make sure it's a good question.
Thanks, Cygnus. So, Aleister, how about from you? Is there any obligation that a fellow Satanist has to lend knowledge or skills to another Satanist?
No, not at all. I think Cygnus summed it up nicely. It's respect. It's out of the goodness of the person's heart that they share information and help you develop, because we're not required to do that. I'm not responsible for anyone's development except my own, and I am the only one that's responsible for my development. So I like what Sig said about having a question, knowing exactly what you're wanting to ask, and also showing the respect and not being combative or argumentative about the answer. I've had people that have asked questions and then they wanted to get into a debate. And it's like, here's my answer. If you want to discuss, we'll discuss. If you want to debate, you're wasting my time. I would say those are probably the most important things to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. So let's shift the conversation for a minute. We've talked about the higher satanic ordered gifts. What about other gifts from the Father? Aleister, what are some other examples of gifts that are given to us by Satanas that are valuable within the kingdom but may not fit under the traditional occult banner?
Well, I know of one, and it's not really a satanic gift. It's more of just a gift of being a person, and that is humanity and recognizing what another person is going through. And again, it's not satanic per se, but compassion as well. I was talking with William Harder. He does I guess you would call it a ministry. He contacts people in prison and talks with them, visits them, and sometimes he's the only person that has any contact with these people because they're considered to be disposable by society. They're warehoused, they're locked away. Sometimes their own family won't come to see them. But just having the compassion and recognizing that, these folks may have done something 25 years ago in the heat of the moment, and they're paying for it for 25 years, maybe even the rest of their life. But recognizing that they're still a human being is, I think, a satanic gift. I think it's a gift of humanity.
Well, that's quite an eye opener in terms of something that was brought up tonight, which I didn't really expect. I mean, that's an incredible statement. Cygnus, how about from you? Any examples of things that you'd like to throw up there that maybe satanic gifts that are given by the Father, but are not the ones of the higher satanic order that we traditionally think about?
Well, first, I do want to reiterate what Magus mentioned, spot on, the gift of just humanity and accepting others the way they are without trying to change them, and bringing out the gifts of the Father in others. You know, we can bring out the worst in others, but we can also choose to bring out the satanic gifts of that Satanas has in others that he is calling. And so bringing that out of others, that's something that maybe people might find different from the left-hand path. They might say, compassion, what are you talking about? No. At the same time, Satanas accepts us fully for our humanity. There is no shame. There is no sin. There is no guilt. We free ourselves in him. So why not, if it's selected appropriately, to also to accept and to bring out Satanas and those that we encounter that are seeking him. That's a beautiful thing. But you know, there are also many other gifts, like for one, satanic wisdom. Many times people approach the altar and they're looking to ask for specific things, needs, and that's due. And at the same time, though, try asking for nothing, simply to receive his satanic wisdom, occult understanding, Luciferian knowledge, right? Asking for those things, because with those diamonds, with those black diamonds of satanic insight, if you have the grit and the satanic fortitude and you've dedicated to this path and there is no going back, on your own merit, you will discover. So simply come before him and ask for more wisdom.
Yeah, so some examples that I'd also say should go on this list. The ability to teach satanic knowledge. You know, teaching sometimes gets missed because people just expect it's going to happen. But, you know, that's a gift. Not everybody can go out and just start teaching about Satan. Another one is authoring books. Not everybody's meant to write a book. You may be the greatest Satanist in the world and have great knowledge and great information, but you may not be called to be an author. Knowledge does not necessarily mean that you're going to be able to author a book or author some writings about Satan, no matter how much knowledge you may have. And I call that the putting of the truth out there. Another one is satanic expression through the arts and through music. We have quite a few listeners that come to us from the arts and provide some incredible gifts there, but music as well. Meditation. That's a gift from Satan, your ability to meditate. Not everyone has that skill set. Some people find that to be tremendously difficult to be able to employ that skill. The act of prayer. I would tell you that Marie Ravensoul, there's no other Satanist that I know that has the passion that she does and the ability to offer satanic prayers. It's an incredibly good and strong gift. Some other things that I would point out, those that are willing to give acts of service, lending not just their voices to the needs of the satanic community, but actually going out and doing some things in the satanic community as acts of service. I know that Cygnus is starting to do that through some of his ministry that he's leading right now. And that's, I think, an incredible thing. The ability to connect people together is an incredible gift. Not all of us are called to be extroverts. Many of us, in fact, on this path are introverts. But the ability to go out and call people together and get them organized behind certain efforts out there. Aleister, anything that we didn't cover that should be on the list from what we just said?
No, I think that about covers it. And I really like what you emphasized about art and music, because there are some very, very talented people out there that do art. They do painting, drawings, great musicians, great songwriters, great groups. And all of these things speak to the spirit. I think each person has one or more gifts, and it's just what they do with them. I like to write a little bit of music for my videos, and it's nothing impressive, but hopefully somebody will like it and go, wow, that sounds pretty neat. It's part of the experience. And if it celebrates Satanas, then I've done what I needed to do. That's the way I feel about it.
Well, great thoughts there. So, Aleister, tell me, is there anything that is out there that is missing from either the higher satanic order or these other gifts that we're now talking about? Are there skill sets that are missing out there that, gosh, we have a real shortage of this, we really need this skill set, and it's just not out there right now?
Man, tolerance, I think, is it's very lacking. Just being tolerant with other people. People talk about the different movements and, the different hashtags and things like that. And those are great. But how about just recognizing another person and recognizing that they may be going through something right now that is crushing their spirit? And instead of, blowing the horn at them at the red light, how about just, relaxing for a moment and recognizing everybody has a fucked up day. And, it may be their turn, maybe your turn next week.
Sig, how about from your perspective, any missing shortages of talent out there that we need from either the higher occult list or the lower order items?
A pyramid is built on a foundation, and without that foundation, it won't be sturdy. It'll wobble. And Aleister just really mentioned it on point. I mean, and you mentioned it earlier, Malthorpe, in regard to, Aleister mentioned tolerance and also our ability to convey our knowledge. We could have all this information, we could have all this experience, but if we can't communicate that respectfully, if we're pushing people away through our behaviors, if we're intolerant and more just spiteful and wrathful, and we find ourselves growing angrier, even if all the information you might have and the experience you might have is valid and true, it only benefits you, right? And you might find that your world grows more isolated and more solitary. And perhaps in one way, you're yearning to connect to others. And so tolerance is so important. It seems so simple, but it's fundamental. We see so much intolerance in the right-hand path. And the left-hand path, we often say we're different. So why replicate those same behaviors? Why be dogmatic? Why be intolerant, judgmental? So I would say valuing education is important, the pursuit of knowledge, in our path, satanic enlightenment, and freedom, true freedom for all people to make an informed will. There's no seeking to convert. There's no seeking to recruit. It's people are free to come, to go, to do as they will. This is the choice. This is the freedom that Satanas gives us. And with that tolerance, remain open-minded. When you ask questions and engage in a conversation, don't go in to fight, to debate, and to challenge. I mean, unless you're bored and you want to just have a debate. But if you're asking questions, just be genuinely curious, respectful, appreciate the other perspective, stay balanced, stay grounded, embrace strong, healthy, critical thinking. Ask questions. Questions are good when they're asked respectfully and asked the right way.
Great, my brothers. For me, I remember there was an Exian church that started a ministry that was focused on reclaiming the arts for the extras. And I thought, fuck, you guys run almost everything as it is. Do you really believe that there is lost territory that needs to be reclaimed? But, thinking about it, and it's not a contest, they kind of have a point. So I believe we need to do more to support blossoming satanic artists, singers, songwriters, authors, painters, poets. The art should be claimed and be utilized to honor the being that released us from a great prison and a burden. And that's Satanas. Certainly that's worthy of praise. But in order for satanic creators to do this, we as a community, we kind of owe it to step up and be supportive. And frankly, I believe there's even a need for pole dancers for Satan out there. So to our listeners, it sounds like there are some specific needs that need to be and should be addressed. And if you're looking for ways to serve the kingdom, they certainly exist. So this is Night Sessions coming to you from Studio 3B, talking about discerning your spiritual gifts. We're breaking for this brief commercial. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss it.
Satanic blessings. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is Magus Cygnus Atratus. I have some exciting news I just wanted to share with you. Every other Tuesday, we are hosting an open study group meeting, reviewing the magnum opus literature to include Satanism and devil worship, the book of satanic magic. We also open up the floor for discussion, questions, open to presentations. It's exciting. The energy is building, and come and join us. It's a lot of fun. Feel free to send me an email at cygnusatratus.nox@gmail.com. That's cygnusatratus.nox@gmail.com.
If you're just joining us, I'm your co-host, Malthorpe Vlad Draco in Studio 3B, and this is Night Sessions. With me is Magus Aleister Nacht and Magus Cygnus Atratus. This evening, we are talking about discerning your spiritual gifts. And gentlemen, let's move on to a new segment for our show, and that's addressing questions from our studio audience. We will include this as a part of our show on a regular basis. And our question is this from one of our listeners. I heard on last month's show, and I thought it was a good show, but my question is, am I denying Satan if I don't boldly put myself out there? And Cygnus, let's go to you first. We had a listener, they're concerned about being bold and representing their faith. And particularly, you see this often in new believers wanting to be excited about, who they are now in this new walk with Satanas. But we talked about on the last show, holding things occult. Is she denying Satan? And how would you address that to her? She brought that question to you.
Well, my immediate response, Brother Mel, would be to this sincere seeker would be, no, absolutely not. You are not denying Satan. Off the bat, this is an occult tradition, a hidden tradition. It's been like that for many years for a reason. And again, more information on that in the previous episode regarding when we should keep things occult or when not. My question to this individual would be, are you denying yourself? And that's different. Do you feel where you are in your life, in your path, in this context, do you feel that you're denying yourself? In other words, do you feel that that part of your self-empowerment, part of you stepping into your power, that would be to speak? Well, then so be it. If this is what you feel your true infernal will is. However, we also don't cry about spilled milk. The cause and the effect. There is no karma, so to speak, but there's cause and effect. So examine that and make a healthy decision, and whatever it is, accept it. And accept what it is that you feel you're being called to do. But if this is your will, then so be it. But it's denying Satan? No. You would not be denying Satan. This tradition is occult by nature.
Thank you, Sig. So, Aleister, how about from you? What's your perspective here?
No, I don't think a person has any obligation whatsoever to evangelize Satan or to share Satan. It's called a cult for a reason. I think the relationship between the person and Satanas is what's important.
Yeah, thanks, Aleister. I think that's well said from both of you. My perspective is this. It's about the heart. If you are acting out of fear by not talking to someone that you desire to talk to, and you're acting out of fear from the standpoint of you're worried that you're being out there and having a conversation with someone, question that. Question whether or not it's truly an issue of security, or is it truly an issue that you're just fearful of being identified as a Satanist? This is an occult path, and it's a cult for a purpose. And part of that is the protection that Aleister talked about on the last show. But measure it from within yourself, whether or not your call to do something or to be something is out of an irrational fear, or out of simply being wise and showing wisdom in your own protection. Well, that's our response to tonight's question. And if you have any questions that you'd like to get answered, please email our ministry. And my brother, Cygnus Atratus, is going to give you that email address.
That's cygnusatratus.nox@gmail.com.
And brother, let's go ahead and spell Atratus just to make sure everybody's got that spelling correct.
cygnusatratus.nox@gmail.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, brother. So now on to our final segment before we adjourn for this evening. As we ask each week, what's the most important message from him that you want to send to our listeners that may be gnosis for many about our worship of Satanas? Aleister, let's start with you, and then we'll go to Cygnus.
I think the biggest message is stop thinking that Satanism is about destroying others through your actions, or destroying yourself through booze, drugs, what have you. Satanism is about self-preservation. It's about being healthy and enlightened and able to pursue a relationship with Satanas. It's not about tearing yourself down, and it's certainly not about abusing drugs and alcohol and things like that.
That's beautiful, Aleister. So, Sig, how about from you?
I would pose the question to our listeners: how do you wish to cultivate this personal relationship with Satanas? Through love, through fear, perhaps approaching the relationship also with sincerity, respect, with devotion. Continue learning those healthy cognitive skill sets in all shapes and forms, and open your heart to deeper revelations of self, and always be who you truly are.
You know, I think from my perspective, a couple of things. First of all, so many of you want to start your journeys and you just don't know how to get that next step moving you forward. You know, really, it's a pretty simple process. If you feel like you're being called, sit down and meditate and pray, Satanas, bring yourself into my heart, into my mind, into my being. Let me hear the words that you have to tell me. Bring me closer to you. Bring me in relationship with you. Help me to understand more. Help me to understand clearly. Guys, there's so much garbage out there right now, and it's hard to discern a true walk versus a made-up walk. But you'll know it in your heart if yours is a true walk. And some of you are waiting for another invitation, another call, and some of you fear this being that is Satanas, and that's natural. That's actually healthy. But when you're ready to fly and you're ready to start your journey, don't keep putting it off. You know when you're ready, and putting it off and putting Satanas off. One day he may not be there calling your name. Once he's called you, you know that call. It's prevailing. It's in your psyche. You know, you feel it. Now, many of us have months and months and months, and sometimes years of that soul seeking to make that decision. So the timing is in your domain and it's in Satanas's domain. But quit putting off till tomorrow the work that you need to do today. The final thing that I'll say is, and it's related to our topic for tonight, and that is the development of your talents. If you want a skill set and you believe that Satanas is revealing it, it's very much like what Aleister said. Some of that generational work, you may begin to believe that you come from a much earlier age, and that's natural. Many of us feel that, but you'll know that skill. You'll feel and sense that you have a skill in a certain area. Go develop that. And like my funny story about Tero, Sometimes things that you want, you don't get, and that's okay. That's Satanas's decision. But if you want to hone a skill, ask him. He'll guide you. He'll send you familiars and others that can help you along your way. Be willing to do the work. Don't ask for it to be easy. It never is. Get on the path and get moving.
So we received a question from Robert Kerr. He says, I think it would be great to hear book, movie, music recommendations at the end of each episode from the three of you. I've got a music recommendation. It's a band called Ghost. Most people have heard of them, but my favorite album is Infestissimum. So if you're into melodic satanic music that you can sing along with and turn the music up and make the dogs howl, it's perfect for that.
Yeah, I completely agree about Ghost. I love their stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You know, for me, when I first had some awareness, my first awareness of Satanas was at 7. But by the time I was around 11, Kiss was out and was going strong. Later in my life and later in my walk, it was Korn. And again, you can say it's a satanic group, or you can say it's not a satanic group. From the standpoint of movies, for me, without a doubt, Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, yeah. Classic. I like the Skeleton Key just because it's, set in southern Louisiana, but there's a lot of really good Conjure stuff on there. Papa Justify, and it brings back the feeling of New Orleans to me. So
I'm going to have to check it out. Cygnus, I know you're going to give us some really good, strong entries here.
Well, I'm going to recommend also a YouTube channel called Satan and Sons. I'm really enjoying this channel. They got a lot of good demonic ends. Also, some really good guided meditations. In regards to movies, I like vampire films. So, an oldie but goodie, it has always been for me, Queen of the Damned. I think that's a solid soundtrack also as well. Korn's on it, by the way. But if you're looking for something a little more kosher, a little more neutral, a cool documentary is Baraka.
Yeah.
But what they do is they go throughout the world and they see about 24 different countries on 6 different continents over a 14-month period of time. And they see different rituals that different groups of people do, from the Sufis to the Pygmies, in Kenya, the Japanese. All they do is solely take a silent film solely on the practice of ritual all around the world. And I think it's a real cool experience, a little slow at times, but if you just sit there and watch it and see what human people do all across the globe in yearning for meaning ritualistically, I think it's fascinating.
It's wonderful. You had told me about it and I went and watched it. And just for the visual value, it's shot in 70 millimeter. It's beautifully shot.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it, Magus. Yeah, definitely very interesting because kind of puts into perspective also a little bit, like when you ask yourself, am I doing this right? Am I doing ritual right? Watch this and you'll see the variety of ways human people express themselves very creatively.
So thank you, Robert, for sending that question in, and we'll continue doing that in future episodes.
Gentlemen, that's a wrap. Thank you both for being here and for what you do in the service to him. To our studio audience, this has been Night Sessions. We'll be back to you in the future. Watch for announcements. Until then, on behalf of my co-host, pleasant dreams and hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.